tell us a little bit about what you see in the homes that you do inspections on, and what are some things that sellers can, can keep top of mind in terms of home maintenance and prepping their homes.
I'm Sam, obviously. That's the label states there. The name of my company is Rolo Home Inspections. We've been in business for 15 years. I used to be in the business world. Well, I'm still in the business world. I'm in corporate world, and I really needed to do something that I thought was important. So that's why I do home inspections. What I could tell you about our business is we get a lot of first-time buyers that are very nervous about just about everything you can imagine. It starts with the area they're in, and then of course the home itself, which is where I start. When we do a home inspection, we start with the exterior, and we look for drainage concerns. That's usually our number one concern. Um, no one wants water in their home, and water can do a lot of damage. So we look for potential drainage concerns at the exterior, condition of the roof, condition of the gutters. I think that one of the biggest turnoffs for a client, and again, I'm beating a dead horse, is water. You get water in your home. It's one of those things that, as far as the future goes, you don't know if you're ever going to get it again. Like you could, and in people's minds, they say, well, if I have it corrected, can it happen all over again? And a lot of times you don't know. So that's usually the number one thing. Number two, I would think, is probably the roof. Um, the question I get most of the times is, how much time am I going to get on this roof? And that's usually a pretty big expense. Um, in our home inspections, we're looking at the mechanicals. We're looking at all the aforementioned things, windows and doors. What I would tell you about, if you have a basement, always look for moisture, I guess. Uh, One of the things that people will always point out is newly painted surfaces.
Mhm.
So if you have an issue in your basement, I would not try covering it up,
Mhm.
because it's usually a telltale sign when you go down the basement and all the walls are painted and they're freshly painted. Also, cracks in what I would tell you, though, is if you have any cracks in drywall, I would go around, spackling and taping and repaint those areas, because first time home buyers, they probably go on Google, and then they ask the Google inspector what to look for. And a lot of times people generalize with these things. And even though the crack may not be significant, or may not tell you about, or may not really be pointing out to a structural issue, in their minds, it may. And it's one of those things where I think that the more little things you could repair in your home, the fewer things there are on the report, and the fewer turnoffs. If if you go into a home and there are 50 things, they start thinking, well, if there are 50 things, what else could there be that I'm not seeing? Could there be
Right.
something behind a wall? Could there be something that's hidden? And it's a legitimate concern.
Yeah.
If you go into a home and there are only three or four things, then people expect that.
Right.
People expect that.
That's a good point you make. I know that, when I have sellers that are proactive about doing the right thing and know that there are things that need to be paid attention to, and they take care of it ahead of time, it just makes the transaction go more smoothly. You really know that once the inspection's done, that you're not going to get, a laundry list, because we're during COVID, it was so much different, and there was such a frenzy and people that needed to, find suitable housing, and they were giving away, everything. They're, signing away their lives, just wanted to get in,
Yeah.
into a new house. And so some people were waiving inspections. Nobody was going back to negotiate after the inspection for the seller to do anything. They were just happy to have that accepted offer and run with it. But I'm not seeing that to be the case anymore. And I know that, like you said, if there's a water issue and someone can get ahead of it and take care of it. I have a listing right now where, they bought it 4 years ago, the house. And we've had so many rains, like really crazy amounts of rains in short periods of time where maybe houses never had water and now all of a sudden they have water. So, I suggested to them that they get some quotes and they figure out how they could resolve the issue. And they put in a sump pump, they did some work around it, and we were open about it. Now, sellers have to provide a property condition disclosure statement before going to contract. So, they were open and honest about what had happened and how they remedied the situation. And it just made the transaction so much smoother. Do you also see a lot of issues with, like, for example, poor ventilation, mold, things that, venting issues in the attic or crawl spaces, things like that? You see a lot of that and concern on the buyer side?
We see it often enough.
Mhm.
It's thank you for mentioning mold. Mold is definitely a huge turnoff.
Mhm.
Sometimes it's like really localized, say behind a washing machine or something like that. If you have anything like that, take a look at behind your appliances,
Mhm.
underneath kitchen and bathroom sinks. Also, especially like in the boiler room.
Mhm.
In the boiler room, you have a lot of condensation, and a lot of times there will be a little surface mold. But you'd be shocked at some of the questions that we get. Do I need a mold remediation? If I see it here, could it be behind the wall? I would just take all that stuff off the table.
Yeah.
As far as the attic goes, I'm not going to say it's half of the time, but I would say one out of 7 or 8, you go into an attic and the insulation has been stuck into the eaves, which has blocked the ventilation, and then you see the dark staining on the roof sheathing.
Mhm.
That's it, although it can be corrected, what I would advise you is take care of it before you even have an inspection.
Right.
For one thing, everything that you take care of up front will cost you less than it would have eventually have cost you, because when you nip it in the bud, you have time to shop for a contractor.
Mhm.
When you're in contract and people are expecting an answer right away, you're you're pretty much tied down to the first, second contractor that gets a hold of you if they return your call.
Right.
So you're really better off taking care of these things, right away.
Yeah.
Um,
And then septic inspections, you started doing those as
Thank you.
well. A lot of homes in the area, municipal services, a lot of times you don't find that. And you
Yeah,
see, septic and well and radon, those are additional services that you also provide, right?
we also do septic inspections. Septic inspections are probably just as important as a home inspection, and there are a whole host of issues that we find with these things. I think that if you're selling a home and you have a septic system, I would highly recommend that you do a septic inspection before you even before you even get to the point of an offer,
Mm.
because septic inspections could unearth, for lack of a better word, a lot of issues, and it's usually a pretty expensive deal. I
Mhm.
mean, it could range anywhere from $1,000 for a short pipe up to $20,000-$30,000 for a full replacement.
Mhm.
And city people, especially, who have never had a septic system, they're very skeptical of the septic system to begin with.
Mhm.
Never mind when they go to a home and they find all kinds of issues. Because
Right.
then they always wonder well, if I repair it today, is it going to happen again in 3 or 4 years?
Right.
You know. Um, we also do radon testing. As far as radon, I'm not too sure that a homeowner could do much to get ready for something like that. You either have it or you don't. Uh, I think that if you wanted to do a radon test, you could probably go to a Home Depot or Lowe's, pick up a kit, or we could do it for you. May not be a bad idea if you're looking to sell, and this way you could nip that in the bud as well.
Mhm. The good thing is that those mitigation systems aren't that expensive, right? I think
They're
like
not.
under a
I think
2,000.
they I
Yeah.
think they range somewhere around 14, 1,500,
Yeah.
depending
So,
on the size of the fan that you're going to need.
Right. And for people that might not know what radon is, what exactly, what's the concern when you find radon or high levels of radon in a home?
Well, the EPA has a certain limit for how much radon should be in somebody's home. I think it's anything 4.0 or higher picocurie per liter. So I think it's what it is. Um, there's a lot of controversy with that. Some people say it causes lung cancer. Some people don't. Some people say it doesn't. There are some studies out there that say that it causes lung cancer. Other studies that say that homes with radon actually have fewer cases of lung cancer. But the doubt is always there.
Right.
If you want to test your home, it's definitely a good thing to do it.
Yeah.
Nip that in the bud.
Yeah, for sure.
Um,
You also have separate or more in-depth inspections if someone is getting a specific type of loan, like a VA loan or an FD loan. Those are inspections that require a little bit more, right? Is that different from
yeah,
say buying cash or paying with a conventional loan?
yeah. There's a loan product out there from FHA. It's called the 203K, which is for homes that require a lot of work. We get involved in those also. It requires an initial inspection and then getting estimates from a contractor uh, to make the repairs. It's a bit of a longer process, but if you have a home that you're selling and you know that it requires a lot of work, I would be open to the idea of someone buying that home with a 203K loan. FHA could be pretty picky. They send an appraiser out, and if there are FHA concerns, then I can let you close on the deal until you take care of those things. So pre-inspecting your home may not be a bad idea. It's not that expensive. You'll come away with a punch list of some of the things that should be taken care of.
Yeah. No, definitely. I think it's like getting ahead of it and making sure that you can make the process, with the right people in place. I think, when um, I think that the important thing, like you said, is having a punch list and understanding these are things that I can take care of that aren't going to be that much of a headache or that much of a cost, but in the long run, they're going to help me make, have an easier transaction, or you're prepared for them to come up when a buyer does their inspection, and at least you can kind of be prepared for some sort of credit. There are some people that, they are in a situation where they don't really want to take on a lot when they
Yeah.
are going to sell, but they'll know, okay, they're probably going to ask me for, I don't know. I negotiated a $5,000 credit because there was mold in the attic in a house in Middletown for a buyer. So, it's those kinds of things where it's like someone might say, I don't have the time to deal with someone coming in and, doing all this work, but I'm prepared, and that's where when you determine what your asking price is and, your realtor guides you and you're in a position where you understand what you're dealing with and you're pricing your property accordingly and you're ready to understand if something comes up after inspections that you're better prepared to handle those negotiations.
Getting ahead of those issues makes sense in dollars as much as not turning people off from your home.
Mm-hmm.
If I see that, a lot of times I see people asking for unreasonable amounts of credits for things that are only going to be $1,000 or a couple thousand.
Right.
And I get the feeling that a lot of times it might be because they're first-time home buyers and they don't know what it's really going to cost, and they're asking for more than they think they're going to need, just as a buffer, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
But it's really a good idea to get ahead of those things so you can get timely estimates. You have enough time to repair those things before it comes up. It will cost you a lot less to take care of it before the fact, before you have the home inspection.
Right. Yeah, for sure. And, proper maintenance, like this time of year, what should somebody be doing? They're getting their boiler checked. Like, what are the, home maintenance for this time of year, things that people should be looking at?
I would say servicing their heating system, especially if they have a boiler. Well, whenever we do these pre-listing home inspections, I always, one of the things that I advise people is if you have records of your maintenance, whether it's septic cleaning, taking care of your boiler, any service that you've done in your home, put a binder together. People like to see that. You leave it on the kitchen table on the day of the inspection. It just gives people the idea that you've taken care of your home and that you're pretty organized. And people love seeing that. And it may not increase the value of your home, but it may increase the sellability of it. It takes a lot of the unknown off the table. And they start and they worry less about the things that may not have been caught during the home inspection because when they see that a home's been well taken care of and the seller is organized and they've been taking care of it according to the paperwork, they're a lot less worried about it.
Yeah.
And you may even get fewer requests for credits when people see that.
Right. No, for sure. I know when I have a listing and I know that people have taken good care of it, there's that pride of ownership. And literally, like you said, they have a binder and they know they have a list of all their vendors. It's a sigh of relief for the buyer. It really gives them that level of comfort that they're buying a home that was well taken care of. I've had some sellers recently that for various personal reasons, life gets in the way and it's hard to keep up with the maintenance. And it doesn't mean that you can't sell your home and you're not going to, will work hard for you to get, top dollar for your home. It's not that you can't sell your home if it's not in perfect condition, but it's just one of those things where you're like, okay, well, what's the best way that I can present my home to be able to, this is what, highlighting the square footage, looking beyond maybe the cosmetic things and still presenting it in such a way. And we're still in such a tight inventory market and there's still so many. I got an accepted offer on one of my listings today and I'm like, these people have been looking for a long time and they haven't gotten offers accepted. So people are out there and they're motivated. So whenever is the time for you to sell your home is the right time because that's when, you need to for whatever your personal goals are. And in talking with a real estate professional, I always tell people, even if you're not thinking next week or next month, it's always good to have a conversation sooner than later so that you can get your ducks in a row. And that was really the impetus for doing this. I felt like, like I mentioned before, it's a great time before we get into the craziness of the holidays and whatnot, to just kind of be like, yeah, I'm thinking about doing that. And what would that look like? How would it, how would that play out? So having somebody like you to, offer a pre-inspection, to be able to guide people to get them set up, in a great way to be able to bring put the house on the market and have smooth transactions, when they get their accepted offers with, is awesome. So I appreciate your time, Sam. I know that you have another appointment, so I wanted to honor your time and thank you for coming on. And I will make sure that for everyone that registered that you have everyone's contact information, my contact information. So, if you have any questions about anything after the fact, you know how to reach us.
Excellent. If anyone has any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Yeah, feel free.
Crickets. Okay.
Michelle said that was great advice. I thought that was too about providing, that binder, with all of the information on maintenance and things like that. So that's a great tip. And getting things serviced. Awesome. Thank you so much, Sam. I appreciate you. I think he's frozen. Okay. All right. Well, we are going to jump to the next speaker, who is Yaritza Ruiz, and she is the owner of Absolutely Clear Title Agency. She is amazing, and what a difference when you work with her. In the process of selling your home, we're not going through all the nitty gritty of A to Z. We're just kind of highlighting, how to get your home ready. Yuritza, we're going to talk a little bit about, what title insurance is, what the process is, when you're going through, you've gotten an accepted offer, have a buyer that's, paying you for you to run their, a title and municipal report. So I'm going to pass it over to you. If you could tell us a little bit about how you started your company, your background, and your role in the real estate transaction, that'd be great.
Awesome. Well, good evening, and thank you for having me and inviting me to be a part of this, Claudia. So fun. I think this is a great angle in being proactive, and that's something that I always talk about through absolutely clear title. So I began in the real estate space as a real estate paralegal, and then I worked my way through working for lenders, sort of as a banking paralegal. So then I worked with like your bank attorneys, and I saw a commonality of lack of understanding for this particular portion, which was the title insurance. It's something that is so important and it causes so much delays. It becomes like a scapegoat throughout your transaction. You'll hear the term title a lot, but no one really explains to you what it is or what's the big holdup. And that's why after years of being a paralegal, I got into the title space and began absolutely clear title about almost 5 years ago. And I'm very big on educating. So I love these platforms because this is where you really get the meats and potatoes of what I love to do as a title insurance agent. So as a title insurance agent, a lot of the times we are presented as someone that the seller really doesn't need to worry about because it's really the buyer that initiates this service and or their attorney, and they're the ones that pay for it. So the seller is kind of like, what do I care about title? But the reality is that they usually get the biggest laundry list of items because it is their responsibility to convey or sell or transfer a clear title, meaning clearance of what exactly? So title insurance, what it does is it protects your buyer from any events from the time that they purchase and before. So that means for the total duration of your ownership and before you. So prior owners from you and before, anything that may have happened or occurred that can affect your buyer's future is what title insurance protects your future buyer from, which is why they pay for it, and which is why the country has decided as a whole that it is the buyer's responsibility to make sure that everything is good and that they're receiving, clear, no worry free ownership. But what people don't realize and what sellers don't realize when they're in this process is that they need to prepare themselves. And in order to be proactive, the best way is to first do an assessment of what it is that you've done since you've owned your property, right? So first, let's go back to the day that you closed on your property, right? On that day, do you remember having a representative there, maybe someone saying something about title, maybe paying a title company or something to that effect? Because on your closing, most people just remember having a bunch of papers and a bunch of people at the closing, and they don't really remember what they're getting. So the expectation is that you would have purchased a title insurance policy for yourself when you purchase your home. And having that document, which is called an owner's policy, which protects you and your duration of ownership, that would help your buyer, future title company speed things along. So if we do have a situation like Sam alluded to, having a seller that's organized and has all their papers and knows where to get their papers from how many years ago that they purchased, if that document is in there, that will definitely speed up the process for your buyers. Because what we have to do now as the title insurance company is do the research for the duration of your ownership. We search your name, we search liens, judgments, mortgages, and we also verify whether you've done anything that potentially you shouldn't be doing without a permit. So you have to assess, have I had a mortgage on this property that I paid off? Did I ever have a lien or a mortgage or a judgment filed against me that maybe I paid off, maybe I didn't? Like sometimes it happens with like credit cards, you let them get, or like medical bills that may, after, depending if you've owned it for like 20, 30 years, may have converted into a lien prior to being nullified. So also items like an assessment of, did I put up a fence ever in my time here? Did I install a pool? Did I change something with the electricity? Maybe the plumbing? These are all things that may come up in municipal searches, which are records kept by the buildings department. And sometimes owners do things on their property, not realizing that they don't have full rights to just do whatever you want without contacting your municipal office. So things like that, an assessment as a seller will help you move things along because those are items that can delay the closing or the the closing table reach, I guess is how I should say it, because you'll hear like, oh, there's an open permit for, let's say, a fence or a gate that you put up at some point, and you didn't realize that you needed the permission of the buildings department to put that up.
Right.
Or you updated your plumbing and you knew someone that was able to do it and it wasn't properly done, especially in the city. You need certain codes, meets, and inspections. Those things can cause delays. Knowing where you can access your current statements. So do you have a mortgage? Do you have a line of credit? Where can you, do you use online banking? Are you able to go into the bank and request payoffs if that's the situation? Do you receive a water bill every quarter? How do you go about receiving your final water reading? These are items that the sellers are responsible for. And something that you and I talk about, Claudia, a lot are the smoke detector affidavits, right? So smoke detector affidavits are affidavits that the seller now has to get signed and notarized, which is the little caveat, right? There's always been a version of it, but now it has to be notarized. And some municipalities, depending on the town or village you want to live in, needs it the originals, or they need it within a certain amount of time. And this can really delay the closing. And in order for a seller to be proactive, you and I talk about how it would be so awesome if sellers knew that they had to execute this document and have it ready when they're ready to sell. And maybe even have those searches in hand so then they could be proactive, because maybe they've owned the property for 20, 25 years and they didn't realize that they needed to have the fence inspected, or a pool that they installed inspected, or a shed. Sometimes even putting up a shed can require a permit. So if they knew themselves, like, oh, this may be a problem for a traditional lender if my buyer goes that way, or an FHA or something to that effect, then they can have them in hand already, address any items that may cause a delay if they have to go to the municipality and correct it. And they're also good for 6 months. So.
Right. So that's a really cool thing. Usually, like you said, in this process, it's the buyer that's paying for them. But if a seller wants to be proactive, they could hire you to do this search, and they could have them on hand. So when they're in the transaction, they have a buyer that's ready and willing. They say, hey, we already pulled this, we already did the work.
Yes.
And you said they're valid for 2 months, 60 days?
6 months.
Oh, 6
So
months.
a title company will accept it for 6 months. Yeah, those searches are good for 6 months. The crazy thing about it is that if I don't understand why it isn't done by the sellers, I think it's amazing for it to be done. I think it would, on the majority of transactions, it would save up to 3 weeks at minimum.
Yeah.
From getting everything wrapped up and getting to the closing table, because sometimes it can add an extra 4 weeks from the time that your contract is signed.
Yeah.
Maybe even 6 weeks. So depending on the municipality.
I'm really anal when it comes to that, because I've been burned. Like, I've had situations where we're waiting and we're all ready to close, and the next thing I know is they never got the order. The town, like, we don't have the order. We didn't get the, or then, we call the title company, not your title company. We call, if there's another title company involved, a lot of times, they're like, oh, we're waiting for the seller to send the SDA. And it just blows my mind, because it's a document that needs to be signed and notarized, and the original has to be sent. It's not rocket science. And that, like you said, can take weeks to, it's just a hiccup that just shouldn't be. But I've had sellers.
Communication. You just need to communicate. Sometimes you only need a copy of it. So sign, notarize, get it, emailed over, and sometimes that's all you need. But because it's new, it's like you need a whole follow-up system just for that.
Yeah. And then the other thing that I think is interesting, well, in terms of encumbrances or rights of way, or road, like private roads, that comes up in your title search, right?
That is something that we search and we verify whether they're still valid. So let's say you like moved into a development, or there's been some development since you've purchased. If you have a survey, that would be great for your buyer as well. And those are searched mainly in where I think the biggest benefit is like if there's a lake or a pond or a creek or something, it's good for your buyer to know that. But yeah, those are searches that we do as well.
Yeah. So a seller doesn't have to have a survey, But it's great if they do have one, or say it's not updated, at least it's a basis for someone to go off of, and then, it can be updated. The buyer can, can pay that expense, to do that. So,
Yes, especially if they've owned the property for a long time because of development and changes within the maps of the tax maps and the filed maps.
right.
Those shifts can actually change the dimensions of the property and then can make it a little funky for the lender later on. If like recently I had a file where the property was off by like 4 feet, but it wasn't because it just seemed like the lines had shifted just over time with like, I don't know, something with the grounds. That was a little bit out of my league, but we understood that the our comparison of the description of the premises compared with the file with the tax map did not match. And that's a problem.
Uh-huh. Interesting.
Yeah.
So we're talking a lot about, obviously, the area that we're in is in the Hudson Valley, but you also service, like, where you do a lot of work in the city and the boroughs, right?
Yes, so we service all of New York State. So
Is
yeah, a lot of where we're based, but we're based in Orange County.
So is it a lot different in New York City in terms of the process? Is it the same thing with like the smoke detector affidavit and the way you work with the building department and, the DOB
So
is?
actually, no, New York City has yet, and I hope they never do get on the smoke detector affidavit train, because it's it's a whole nother beast over there. But as of late, you can get municipal searches in the five boroughs super quick, like within a week, if even less. Sometimes within a day or two, you're already getting some of those searches. Usually the certificate of occupancy will take the longest, but all the other searches are fairly fast compared to the upper counties for sure.
Is that something that a homeowner can do on their own, or is that something that they do through you?
They can do it on their own. A lot of times is that it's not something that's done directly. So whether the municipality office is like open to that and friendly is another thing. But yes, the owners absolutely, as the owner of the property, has the right to go in and say and request it. You can also do a FOIL. I think that's also something that a seller can do, which is your realtor can help you do that, or you can just go on to the buildings department and or the office of the buildings department in the town that you want to purchase, that you live in or own, and it'll say you you request a FOIL, which is like freedom of information, and that will disclose whether you have violations. It won't give you the specifics of what violations are open, but it will let you know as the owner, like, okay, I do have some violations that I may need to address.
Mhm. Yeah. And this might sound daunting and scary, but it's not. It sounds like it, but it's not. And I think the reason why it's not is because you're going to have a professional guiding you, right? Hopefully,
Yes,
someone
very
like
important.
that is
We did clarities,
yeah,
clarity sessions.
definitely. Being able to kind of bring people in and say, okay, because I had a seller that didn't know they were a victim of identity theft, and they ended up having to put money in escrow to close and deal with the issues that came out. And that came up from the buyer's title report. They didn't have
Yes.
no idea. So yeah, it's interesting. But again, you're not alone in this process when you decide to do it. You have help, you have guidance and professionals, like you
Yeah,
and
we take the deep dives, but it's all about disclosure. I think in order to make the process smooth, you have to disclose all the things that you think may be an issue. So if you've ever had a mortgage, maybe you paid it off and it wasn't properly released, keep all your records. That's what I say. I think is the best thing. If you ever paid off something on your property, that's what was related to your property, like a mortgage or a lien or something to that effect. Save all your documentation because you never know whether it was properly filed with the county in order to release it.
yeah,
If you were married at some point or divorced and you change your name, all of those documentations are needed. If there's someone that owned the property and died, we need proof of their death. Or if there's an estate situation. So there's a lot of documents that we will require as you being the seller and the owner of the property, that if you have that readily available, you can, but also you can, the selfish plug will be that you can do a clarity session with me and I can answer any questions as far as like, what will your particular situation and your particular sale require?
yeah.
Like,
No,
what will the title company need from you?
I think that's really great. You mentioned estate sales, foreclosures, things like that. It's a whole other, those are whole other,
Right. And they require a whole nother slew of documents from the owner.
but I think it's awesome. I thought of I know we've had some clarity sessions with my buyers, but I think it's really important, going forward, that's for the sellers, to have that opportunity as well, and possibly
Oh,
even get the search done prior, like you said. There's one more thing that I wanted you to share with people as homeowners that can protect themselves against, we were talking about, like, in the news, you talk about somebody, title fraud and basically.
yeah, well, as owners now, yeah, I mean, this is geared towards sellers and owners. And I know, particularly in Orange County, there is a fraud prevention. If you were to go on to the Orange County Clerk's website, you can actually sign up for free fraud prevention. And what that is that if they see that there is something filed against your property or name, then you'll get an alert, typically through like an email or mail. And it's a free service of the Orange County Clerk's office.
I'm sure other counties have something similar.
They probably do. Yeah.
That's great. Yeah, that's on my to-do list. But awesome. Does anyone have any questions for Yuritza? And again, I'll make sure that you have her contact information, but this was super, super helpful. And like I said, it can sound overwhelming and daunting, but it's not when you have the right people on your team guiding
You
you.
can know who your title agent is
Yes.
all across the board.
Yes, for sure. Awesome. Well, thank you so much.
Thank
Now
you.
we are going to head over to the cool marketing, photography, think about it. You call me, you say, I want to list my home, figure out timing, motivation, all that good stuff. We talk about the market, we talk about pricing, we talk about what you need to get your home ready, all the documents that you need. Sam comes in, does his pre-inspection, you've got your punch list. You're ready to go. You're like, Claudia, I'm ready for pictures. I'm like, okay, great. I have an amazing company that can help us. And it's called Home Tour Vision. And take it away, Jim. This is your company. Welcome to the Zoom. Thank you so much for being here. We've done a lot of business together. So I'd love for you to share how you got involved with Home Tour Vision, what you do, how you work with clients to, make their homes look beautiful in, online and, in all the marketing that you provide.
Well, thank you, Claudia. So my name is Jim. I'm the owner of Home Tour Vision. And how I got started was I actually was a real estate agent for a very short time, which is a lot of hard work. And I have a love of photography. So I mixed the two and I started Home Tour Vision. I don't practice real estate anymore. It's been a long time. One of the reasons why I decided to start Home Tour Vision was when I was doing real estate as a realtor, my buyers were skipping over homes based on the pictures that they saw online.
Mm-hmm.
Whether the home wasn't picture ready or it was bad quality pictures. And I might have known that those homes were perfect for them or a good, not something to pass up because I might have shown somebody else. My buyers just would skip over. So it is very important, like Claudia was saying, your home has to be ready. And the first impression that home buyers have online is what they get from your pictures of your home. I forgot the exact percentage, but it's more than half, right, Claudia? That's of people that start their search online.
Yeah. Oh, it's a high.
It's a very high number. Whereas when I started Home Tour Vision, I think the number was down to about a third of the people. And what changed a lot of things is, again, all the devices we have, our smartphones, our tablets, we have our computers with us all the time. People want information immediate, especially visual. And COVID changed how people search for real estate. Because during COVID, everybody was online because we couldn't visit homes in person. So it is very important. The media of your home is extremely important. Once all the fun stuff and the contracts are out of the way, it's time to get your home ready for its day. So a lot of the things I've seen, a lot of things, and Claudia has too, of bad pictures online and horror stories. So what we recommend is while you're going through this process of getting ready for picture day, you want to start, you're going to be moving. You want to start first packing everything away that you don't normally, that you don't need. We all live in our homes, so it's hard enough as it is. But if we gradually start moving stuff away, especially the little stuff, get that out of the way, it makes things a lot easier. So when picture day comes and Claudia calls us up and says, we're ready, we can go in with everything ready and make sure that your home looks the absolute best for the home buyers who are looking for their new home. So we actually have a property checklist that for anybody who's looking for some ideas on how to get their homes ready. But the two most important things you're going to hear me say, or words, is declutter and depersonalize. And I'll probably repeat that about 24 times during my time on here. So we'll start with things like exterior. Depending on the time of the year, you want to make your exterior look you want to treat it like you got company coming over and we all rush to get everything all ready and then some. So exteriors, you want to make sure on picture day, no cars in the driveway if all possible. No cars in front of the home if possible. Kids' toys, dog toys, you want to hide that, put that stuff away. Garden hoses, you want to roll them up. Anything, patio furniture, you want to make sure it's as clean as possible. If you have an old, which I had an old grill, put a cover on it, put a nice cover on it. If it's ripped, replace it, take it off. Anything that you feel that you would not want to show online, that's your opportunity to do something about it. And don't wait till the day before picture day. You have some time as you're getting your everything ready. You have time to get ready for the most important day. So even things like sprucing up, getting a new welcome mat for your front door, little flowers, take away dead flowers, anything again that would turn you off when going to look at a home. So then once that's done, you start inside, and that's where I'm going to repeat myself again, declutter and depersonalize. So things that we are used to seeing from living in our homes every single day, we kind of don't think about how a stranger would look at our home that way. So whatever we can do again to depersonalize and declutter. So that refrigerator, that giant magnet that we have in the middle of our kitchen that has all the magnets and our kids' drawings and menus from local restaurants. That's your time, because that's going to have to come off anyway. Well, now's your time to take that all off, pack it away, and put it to the side. The kitchen is the most important room in a home. So that's the tricky part where we need our kitchen every single day. But leading up to picture day, you want to make that kitchen shine as much as possible. The appliances or the little sandwich makers and all the stuff, the blenders that we are not using, clean off your counters. And this is just coming from years of experience to see, what looks better. Less is more. So if you have clutter from our everyday lives in our pictures, it's going to show your space as being small. And that's just the way things are. The extra things, if we take those things away, the rooms actually look bigger, and everybody's looking for big rooms. So you want to get rid of the things that are not necessary. And if you have to wait till the morning of your shoot or the night before your photo shoot, take those things off your counter, clean off those counters, open up the windows, clean your appliances, set up your tables in the kitchen, dining room area with like you would if you're ever having company over. You want to make it inviting for someone who's coming in, or if someone was coming in, but they're going to be looking at the pictures online. Room by room, sort of the same thing. Pictures, our family pictures, if you're able to, pack those away because they're going with you when you move. And this is the time to depersonalize your home. So our own pictures, you want to try and put those away. And set, one of my favorite things is if at all possible, we're setting up our homes as if it was an Airbnb, as people were coming to stay at our home. You're never going to stay in a hotel room or an Airbnb with family pictures around. So think of it as a stranger coming into your home. You want to, remove any excessive items, blankets, things that you just normal everyday life, or our comforters on the couch while we're watching TV. You want to clean everything out and put it away. We have a whole list. You want to deep clean the entire home as much as possible. That's floors, rugs, windows, bathrooms, as much as possible. And that's what I meant earlier. Don't wait till 2 days before your photo shoot as you're getting ready, because we all live in our homes. There's again years and years of our stuff, and there's a time you should start. As soon as you start thinking about selling your home, that's a perfect time to start little by little putting this stuff away.
I
Fresh
wanted
flowers. Good.
I love that fresh flowers is such a
Yes.
nice touch. I love that. This past year, I had some sellers that I spoke to them early on, and it took them like a few months before they were ready. And your people always come in and are so professional, and it's such an overwhelming experience. I had some sellers that had a lot of stuff that they had to get rid of. The depersonalization and the decluttering was overwhelming. So I feel that that can be daunting, and they can feel like they're never going to be ready for pictures, but there is light at the end of the tunnel. And like your checklist, I have a checklist as well. I'll go through all of that with them when I meet with them, and I'll walk around as if I were the buyer, and I'll point out things that I think, would make the house present, more beautifully. So it's almost like the checklist that they get, if they do a pre-inspection, they get a checklist in terms of like how else they need to prepare the house visually, so that, when they take pictures, they're going to be happy with the way the pictures came out. But your people are so professional, and they really, sometimes not everything, is done perfectly, but they have that artistic eye, even like the toilet cover, put that down. Or, if there's I don't know, things hanging behind the door and you're closing the door to the bathroom, it's like they'll take it off, so you guys are super professional. And I think the other thing that's really great too is the privacy. Sometimes people have papers and documents that are sensitive, and you can zoom in on pictures, or if you're doing, can you speak a little bit to, making sure that that is also covered, because the quality of your images, someone can zoom in, you can see a lot, right?
Yeah. So we have a couple things that we can help with that too, because there is light at the end of the tunnel. When I just moved recently, 32 years I was in my home. So it took me a while to get but again, nothing's going to be absolutely perfect. But like you said, my team, they're artistic guy. There's angles we can take to not show certain things, and editing has come a long way too. So if we can't take the big wedding picture off the wall, if it's too heavy, we can blur that out in the pictures. Just mention it to your realtor, of certain things. But we can edit things away where blur things out, or maybe remove a small item that it's not possible there while we're at the home. And my team, what they do usually, they'll walk around with you, the homeowner or the realtor, just for that last minute look that we might have overlooked. Toilet seats down, toothbrushes on the sink is something that we recommend moving. So little things that are just part of our everyday lives that will make such a big difference in the final product and make that home really shine. But again, as a safety net, if there was something that was overlooked, that's where our editing is amazing, and we can fix that right away.
Yeah. I had some that had like dog gates. They had their whole living room was like the dog room, big dogs, and they couldn't get rid. There was stuff they just couldn't. You guys like photoshopped everything out. It looked beautiful.
Oh yeah, we've had to. I don't recommend this, but we've had to clean out rooms virtually that were had boxes up to the ceiling. Yes. It's a lot more work, but yeah, I have an amazing editing team, and so that's the point. And even stuff like we all have our dog. I have two dogs myself, and we have our grass has spots in it every spring. You have your brown spots. Well, that's not always possible to have the lawn perfect for picture day with everything that's going on. We can fix that virtually also. So everything that we can do before photo days actually can just make things a lot easier. And again, your realtor knows, by walking through it, has that eye to see what little changes we can make to make the pictures that much better. And then our team goes in there and does one quick walk around also. And it really does make a big difference. These are where people are. This is the first, you have one chance to make that first impression online.
Yeah.
So we want a home buyer to look at this and want to make the decision off those pictures. Yes, I want to go see that home.
Yeah. Some things that you've done for me, for my clients, are floor plans, which are
Yes.
really very helpful. Like you said, people start their search online, and floor plans are, I've gotten a lot of good feedback on offering them, which, you don't always see those in listings. But I think they've been really helpful for people. And also, depending on the way the property is, if it's near water, if it's got a pool, if it's just in a really, I've used your drone photography, and
Mhm.
that's nice too, just for people to kind of really understand. Sometimes you see a picture of the house, but you don't understand Google Earth, and you can do so much and figure out so much online. But the drone for that perspective is really cool too.
Yeah, perspective is especially depending on the property itself and the neighborhood, and like you said, there's a body of water nearby, or how far the town is, if we're able to see that, the neighborhood. It gives people a good impression. That was one of the problems I had when I was showing buyers, is they might have liked the home, but maybe they didn't like that it was on a cul-de-sac, or I'm just using it as an example. They didn't know what was around the home. Whereas, depending on the property, depending on the street, the town, drone pictures or it gives a different perspective. Floor plans is a great thing. People can they can visualize the rooms and the layout of the home to go along with the pictures. So it's a great way for them to kind of, especially with measurements and dimensions, they can see maybe how their furniture would fit, or where are the kids' rooms in comparison to the primary bedroom, and so on. So yeah, floor plans are, we've been doing a lot of floor plans over the years.
And is it very popular now, like the experience, kind of like what I know Matterport is a company, right? That does the actual virtual, like immersive experience online to do the tour.
They
You have,
do. Matterport is a company. We work with a company called iGuide.
uh-huh.
So iGuide is very similar. And what it is if I'm able to share my screen, and I'm probably going to cut myself off.
Yeah. Gab, can you make it so that Jim can share his screen, please? Let's see. Okay, great. You should be able to share.
Okay. Let's see here. Give me 1 second. Um, so while I'm doing this, so iGuide, again, similar to Matterport, it's a interactive virtual tour.
Mhm.
So people, with the floor plan, so people can actually connect the rooms and see how the rooms flow, how the layout flows, how they connect, and so on. And a very cool feature, and I'll bring this up in 1 second. Nothing like dead air.
So good.
Um, and this became, again, we've been working with like virtual tours for a number of years. And then again, COVID changed how people, how buyers look for real estate. Just pretty much everything's online. So I will connect this in a second right here, and I got to share.
I mean, and we're in an area where, we're near West Point. There are people that are coming, they're relocating, and sometimes they don't even see the house until, very far into the process. So this type
Yeah, sure. And you never know where that next buyer is coming from. I moved from New York to Florida. So,
Yeah.
and I couldn't see every open house or visit every house. So virtual tours were big in my life at the time. And I'm sorry, just can't seem to. So I hear share screen.
I think it's down at the bottom. Do you have it like on where it says share with the green arrow? At least that's the way it is on mine. I don't know.
I see share, but then my screen. I don't want to open up something. Let me see if this works.
If it's not possible, no
I
worries,
don't
Jim.
think I don't think I'm
You know
getting
what
it.
I'm gonna do for everyone that came on? I have, because everyone registered, I'm gonna do a follow-up email, and we can put like a little link or some, a demo or something, as a follow-up in the, in an email that I'll send out after the fact.
Yeah, I will show Claudia. We'll show the pictures and floor plans and a preview of what an interactive. But Well, again, what iGuide is a floor plan with a virtual tour connected, so people can walk through a home and see where they are at all times, so they could understand the layout. And what I did when I moved, I was able to measure live on screen to see if my furniture fits.
Wow.
So
Because
it's very cool.
that is so cool that you can do that, because I
Yep.
can't tell you like how many times I have a property, they keep wanting to come back. So I'm representing the listing, I'm the listing agent and also representing the buyers. And after, you do an inspection. That's something that people need to know too. When you're selling your home, right? You put it on the market, you have people look at it, you have, you need for it to be show ready. You get an accepted offer, you do inspections. The next time someone comes in should really be when an appraisal happens. And usually the buyer doesn't go to that, right? It'll just be the agent with the appraiser. And then they really shouldn't be going back to the house until walkthrough day, like closing day. But a lot of times people are like, oh, I need to know whether or not this couch is going to fit. And so they're asking to go see the house again. Now, they don't have to do that if they have this tool, which is great. Because literally lately, it's just been like, oh, they really want to see if they can go back. I had a call from someone and I was like, I don't think that's going to be possible. Like calling me in the morning saying, I have I wanted to come measure, the living room. So that's such a cool feature.
It's a very cool feature, and that it saves all those unnecessary annoying, people coming in all different days of the week to measure. This has a measuring tool. It has all the tools needed, for, and we do a lot with builders, and it really is. It's changed the industry, that too. So, so that's.
I have one last question, and then if anyone that's listening has anything that they wanted to ask Jim. My question is, in general, for like a 2,500 to 3,000 square foot home, more or less, how long does that photography session usually last?
If we're doing pictures, roughly, I would say about an hour. If the home is ready, it actually does not take, much more time than that. If we were doing something like floor plans, maybe add 10 to 15 minutes onto that. And if we're doing a 3D tour, maybe for that size, probably add another half hour. So 90 minutes tops. So all that work and getting your home ready for 90 minutes, an hour to 90 minutes to make it shine online, that's why it's so important leading up to it to get everything as ready as possible. It really doesn't take too long.
Yeah. And then once it's online and once, it's being marketed, it's just, again, we're in a time where there's not a lot out there. So when something's out there, it's like a beauty pageant too, because there are houses that aren't moving. And so there's that, the question then you kind of have to figure out for the longest time, we weren't seeing lots of expireds, and now all of a sudden we're seeing expired listings. So these are listings that, didn't sell during the time frame that the listing agreement was active. So, a lot of times you can look and say, well, was it the pictures? And a lot of time, like you said, it could be the pictures were really dark. Maybe there were just one or two pictures and you can't really understand. I mean, somebody that's coming from the city and, I just came back and with traffic, it was 2 hours. And that's, so for someone to get in the car and drive to see a property, they really want to know what, from doing their due diligence online and seeing everything online, what it looks like so that they're not, shocked. But yeah, I mean, I think that was really great. I love working with you. Thank you so much for, both of you, for Yuritza, for Jim and Sam, for you guys to coming on, and everyone that joined tonight. If there's anyone, I'll open it up to questions. Does anyone have any questions for Jim or Yuritza or for me? And like I said, I'll definitely, send a follow-up email, like with checklists. Thank you, Adriana. With a follow-up with contact information and some good tips, like a recap of what we discussed. But yeah, thank you so much. I think that's it. I had scheduled it for an hour and a half, but I was being a little over ambitious, and I think we did good in an hour, right? I think we're at
Just like a photo shoot. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, everyone. And
Thank
if you
you
have any
too.
questions,
Yes,
you know how to reach us. Awesome. Thank you. Very informative. Thanks to all. I appreciate you and have a great evening. And I will follow up with everyone. And best of luck in your real estate goals, and know that you're not alone, and that, you know, you have a team that's ready to help you when you decide you want to make your move. Thank you so much. Have a great evening, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.